I'd like to talk a bit about the beautiful work you've been doing with the Gayatri. One is, it's a mantram. So what you want to do down the road is just feel spiritual energy taking you to a high state of consciousness. So as you know, you start out loud. Well, no, as you may not know, but as you will learn in the beginning classes at the Yoga Center, you do out loud chanting, then you do whisper chanting, then you do mental chanting, until it becomes effortless mental chanting, until you get it down so well that it's no effort on your part to chant it. And that's why it's nice to do it a lot and get the tune right. Okay, effortless mental, then the words begin to fall away, and just the spiritual surge of the mantram continues, and the surge will take you to the state we're talking about. So don't hesitate to start out loud, and then go to whisper, and then to mental chanting, and then just let the words fall away, just as you develop, as you play with this, as you work with it. And then you begin to find the spiritual energy, just the vidya, just takes you home to a high state called samadhi, or spiritual awareness, oneness, realization, degree of realization. Okay, so that's one thing to mention. The other to mention is that it's nice at times to do the mantram with stops, knowledgeable about each phase of the Gayatri. The first stop, and this is recommended by Shivananda, but I've heard about it before too. You chant the word Om, and your thought is about absolute infinite spirit. There's all spirit, only spirit. Think about that. Then, the next stop is after you chant Bhu, Bhuva, Sva, the three realms. You stop there. Why? You're thinking about the release of identification with those three realms. The material world, the astral world, and the celestial world. So there's just some kind of awareness. In other words, you're kind of stopping to notice what you're doing. You know, what you're meaning, what you're saying. Just this little pause after each one. The next pause, Tat Savitur Varenyam, you're thinking of Spirit, the Creator, fit to be worshipped. Then the next pause is on the idea we meditate on the remover of sins and ignorance, the glory of the Shining One, which words are Bhargo, Devasya Dhimahi. And then the last one is Yo Yona Prachodaya, enlighten our buddhis. So the goal there was to just make a little stop at each place so you're not just rambling it off. So you're aware of what you're doing, what each phrase means. So that's a beautiful way to practice too. So I was going to have us now do this with the chorus, making the stops. But I've told you how it goes, and I'd rather spend the next 10 minutes or so just chanting it we'll start with the chorus, and then when RP waves you in, everybody join in with the chorus. We have a chorus for tonight, RP? Okay. So, will you kindly assemble your group? Here's our chorus. That looks like a pretty good chorus, RP. He's now Atmo, is he? Atmo. I like it.
It's one of those mountain things.
Atmo. You know, it's got power. It's got flash. So what we're going to do is we're going to just listen. We're going to think about the meaning and listen for roughly 4 or 5 minutes. And then when you're ready, just bring us all in. We'll sing it with you another 5 minutes or so.
With the stops?
I'd like to do it now without. I just told them how to do the stops.
Right.
We won't be stopped. We're not going to stop. We're just going to roll on through.
Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Bhurbhuvah Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat Om Svah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat
Wandering forever, wondering where home is, you begin to find a sense of home. Godward, truthward. Vidya helps awakening. It's supportive, coordinating, harmonizing, freeing. These are just some of the characteristics of Vidya. Now, the point is here, when you feel hobbled or slowed or numbed by avidya, you can just say, I'd rather have vidya. I'd rather have vidya. I'm being numbed, limited, blocked. Now, I know it may seem like a simplification when you're busy in a struggle, but when you find and can be vigilant enough to see avidya's taking over, I want to do a temper thing, or I want to do a sarcastic little, or I'm just going to go be blue for the rest of my life, or whatever it is. Be vigilant that avidya is dominant. So I'd like vidya to come in here. I'd like to welcome vidya. And this is one of the main gifts of the Gayatri. Just in your life, in what's happening in your life, you can invoke, call upon the infinite to express vidya-like. One of the main gifts and powers of the Gayatri. It calls forth vidya. So you can just again and again use this mantram you're working on. Why is it so powerful? Because it was revealed to these ancient rishis. It's a way that the infinite revealed to them that they could call upon vidya, both in terms of self-realization and in terms of greater life realization. Realizing in their daily life more vidya. In their outer life. Call forth more vidya. Just again and again, you can have more vidya, move and express in your life, and you need basically one breakthrough to see it happens, and then you'll do it with more confidence, and you see it happens again and again. Just you can call forth vidya. You can call it forth. This power, this energy that's everywhere, to behave in this marvelous, constructive way instead of this sleepy, negligent, lost, and painful, destructive manner. It's kind of like you are a very important person. You're a person who's conscious enough to make a choice instead of just drifting. Conscious enough to make a choice. So you call forth the Gayatri, and here are some of the benefits that have been claimed for the Gayatri throughout the ages. And there's a lot of enthusiasm, as you might imagine, about the Gayatri. What I'm saying is you have to find out for yourself by using it. Just call forth vidya, this power, this force that will help change things in your life. Just call it forth by chanting the Gayatri and be open to vidya. But here are some of the benefits claimed. It destroys your spiritual ignorance. One day, we're mainly aware through our senses. That's wonderful to have great senses. But there is actually spiritual energy and consciousness everywhere. In you, suffusing you, and everywhere. When you become spiritually aware, you can see it. You can hear it. You can feel this spiritual energy everywhere. And it is the source or substance of all things that manifest out here. If you get to know it well, it'll show you that that's what it's doing. Anyway, that's really high. That's really high. So you chant the Gayatri, bit by bit, you destroy your spiritual ignorance. You become spiritually aware. You awaken from the avidya sleep. Whenever it's trying to numb you, make you oblivious, you awaken from it. There's nothing more purifying on earth or in heaven. It brings great good into your life. Bestows freedom and liberation. The rishis claim that it destroys your sins, your ignorance, committed out of unawareness of spirit. Destroys sins, the consequences of sin. Sin is just living in ignorance and behaving in ego. Just making a mess of things, basically. bestows radiant health. Here are some of the claims from the rishis. Bestows beauty, strength, vigor. This is from the great Shivananda, the great Guru Shivananda. Beauty, strength, vigor, magnetic aura in the face, according to Swami Shivananda. The Gayatri often destroys pain at various levels, like mental anguish as well as physical anguish. It helps to relieve pain. But here it says it destroys pain. So I don't know. Try it on your pain. I think relieve pain is a simpler claim, and you can find that quite easily. It does relieve pain, but destroy pain, well, try it. Bestows righteousness, wealth, the desired objects of your life, and liberation. Destroys avidya, desire meaning immoderate desire, and karma, cause and effect. Very often, some big effect should be coming based on what you've done, but very often that gets softened too. Purifies the mind. Gives spiritual power and intelligence. Through the Gayatri, you bring Vidya into yourself and your life. So, we'd like you to think of your life first. Wherever your life is great, you'll see lots of Vidya. Right? Then, where is your life not great? Unconscious, a lot of conflict, bondage, pain, sorrow, other forms of avidya, confusion, frustration, etc. Why don't we just spend the time here for a little while, just doing a little life analysis. Where is your life really good? Where is it not so good? And where it's not so good, we're going to spend focusing on the Gayatri and calling forth Vidya into those areas. So, 10 minutes for a life inventory. We'd like to look at our lives and consider where it's great, because we want to appreciate that always. And then where it's not really wonderful, where it's even hurtful and unpleasant. And make a note of these. And that's all you do right now. We're going to bring in the Gayatri next. Okay, now, having done that reflection and realizing you can do this in your daily life down the hill, and realizing when you've got friends and you're afraid to lose them, and there are these conflicts in communication, and you want more vidya expressing in your communication with your friends and in your decisions about whether your relationships are constructive or destructive, you could chant the Gayatri. You get me loud and clear? This is my answer to your question. So, the thing is, you're opening your life in these areas that are problem areas for you to vidya, to this energy and force and consciousness that's invisible, but it manifests, and you get to know it as a dear friend down the road. So, thinking now of each of these areas in your life where you'd like to have a change, better communication or closeness with friends or decision about the relationship to be clear and good for everybody, that kind of thing. You just think about that area as you chant the Gayatri. And you ask Vidya to come into that area that you're thinking about, or into that person's life, or into your life, or into the situation, and you chant the Gayatri. And you chant until you feel that Vidya is present there, until you're aware of it. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. You just keep working with it and you get more sure and confident as you go along. There are areas that you'd like to see Vidya instead of chaos or numbness or unconsciousness or hurt or danger. So what we're going to do now, is think of those areas, each of us, in our own timing, in our own lives, and ask Vidya to come into those areas. You got enough areas? The idea right now is think of the problem area or problem person, and then as you chant, feel that Vidya, spiritual force and energy, entering into it and making a change, bringing its presence and its force into the situation or to the person. And as to what you then visualize or think, it's going to be kind of personal and subjective what happens. I'm just saying keep chanting until you personally have the view that Vidya abides in that person or in that area. Okay? Got it? Do your thing. Feel free to stay in your mood if you wish. What happens is the question. When you get really advanced to the Gayatri, you may as well know about it so you can recognize it when it's happening. But take your time and don't feel you have to pretend or imagine yourself into it. You'll get there. It's kind of nice. Usually, gurus, for example, don't tell people exactly where it's going because they want people to actually experience all the process and get there rather than hear where they're going and then imagine they've gotten there. It's much better for them to actually get there. So, is it wise to tell you this? I don't know. But I just feel I've got to round it out. So, you're going to have to resist the temptation to imagine or conceptualize that you've got this if you don't. So, I've laid down the caution. Well, you arrive at such a state of mind in chanting this that this buddhi, your sense of identification, gets enlightened. And you discover, and just keep this in mind for down the road, that you are that supreme light or that supreme spiritual consciousness which gives existence to the buddhi, which gives existence to the sense of self. But you are that self which gives that sense of self existence. You're not it. You're the contributing creative spirit. What would that be like? So, Shivananda, the great guru, says, the aspirant, I'm quoting him here, the aspirant who asked for light from the Gayatri, so he may proceed through the various levels of consciousness. The aspirant who asked for light from the Gayatri in the beginning sings now in exuberant joy, I am that light of lights, which gives light to the buddhi, which gives existence to the buddhi, which gives consciousness to the buddhi. It's very unwholesome to hold this attitude until you're actually there. It's unwholesome because you'll just get such an ego. And thus, in that ego state, make all kinds of stupid mistakes. But anyway, it's true. When you're enlightened, it's true. You're not the buddhi anymore. You're not the sense of self. You are that consciousness which creates the self and gives it the idea of being and the idea of being distinct. I don't know if that helps you or not. I don't know what that does for you, but that's where it goes. Wanted you to know that. If you can chant this without getting incompetent, without dropping things, or, you should not do this with power equipment, driving a car, but down the road, you get into it like it's beautiful music or a beautiful saturation of light that fills your being. Live in it as long as you are practiced in handling it. You can just move about, functioning better than ever. The clue is you don't function worse, you function better than ever. If you're doing the mantram properly, if it's humming around inside you as you move about. Then there'll be a sorting out time. If you really love this and feel that it's very pleasing to you and fits you really well, then it'll get in there, but your subconscious mind has other mantrams already going on, so it'll take some practice to get it in there. And then gradually it'll probably dominate them for a few days, so you got to chant them a bit to give them some space in your subconscious, and then gradually they all fit together perfectly, if you feel this is really suitable for you. If you like it, if you find, well, what you actually have to do, if you haven't found it yet, how many of you have found that you do this mantra and you sense vidya developing and rising? Okay, that's near half. So it takes usually a month or two to discover that if you chant it and get in that frame of consciousness where you're attuned with this wonderful infinite awareness that is not only here but out there, and that this infinite consciousness within you is making a change out there, you begin to discover that happening. You think, this is marvelous, this is supernatural. But it's part of being a human being. We're not just stuck here in a little body our consciousness is other places as well. And it operates in other places if we let it. So you begin to discover that you have a right as a citizen on the earth to cast your vote about situations out there and to have an influence on situations out there. That's the idea of prayer to a great extent. So you can think of a mantram as being like a very high and beautiful prayer. But once you begin to find a video occurring left and right as you're moving through your life, and that it will whenever you're really getting attuned and chanting it, you're in for an amazing improvement in your life.